Users claim that documents unearthed in this latest Epstein file dump prove that, in fact, Epstein was also the creator of Bitcoin. So let's have a look at these emails. Now, this is a screenshot claiming to be from the released files. It's dated October 31, 2008. It's from Jeffrey Epstein to his right-hand woman and his main accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell. It says, Ghislaine, the Satoshi pseudonym is working perfectly. Our little digital gold mine is ready for the world. Funding secured. But what I can tell you very, very easily is that this email is fake. It's not an authentic one, and it's certainly not in the Epstein files that was released recently. A few physical signs. Firstly, if we look at the screenshot itself, I want to point out that there's two different lines for the person it's addressed to, 2 and 2, one of which is a direct copy and paste of the subject, the keyword Satoshi. There are in fact 24 results bearing that keyword. So this is a word that does come up in the Epstein files, and it is mentioned in 24 different results. But we combed through every single one of these, and not a single email or document in this out of these 24 is exactly this viral post that we're seeing there, and nor is there any confession in any of these 24 files about Jeffrey Epstein having invented Bitcoin or being Satoshi Nakamoto. Now, we also looked up some phrases from our viral email, like the one little digital gold mine, which bore no results. We also looked up the email address that's listed here, jepstein@financial.net. That's the one in this viral screenshot here. But again, no results came from that. And interestingly, it is different from the email address that is being seen in all the other Epstein files that are being released and combed through as we speak. It's possible that he had two, but again, it didn't bear any results when we did look it up. So from our conclusion there's no evidence from the latest file dump that links Jeffrey Epstein to being the creator of Bitcoin, Satoshi Nakamoto.
Okay, Epstein, perhaps not the creator of Bitcoin.
Gavin Andresen had his keys revoked from the Bitcoin Core repo by a man named Vladimir van der Laan, who is supported by the MIT Digital Currency Initiative, which received its money from a company called Digital Garage, which received all of its money from everyone's favorite pedophile, Jeffrey Epstein.
What?
So, yes.
Run that back, say that again, please.
In terms of cryptocurrency, there's also several emails written to Jio Ito, who was at the time the director of the MIT Media Lab, which then was hosting research groups linked to early cryptocurrency and the development of what has become Bitcoin.
I want to point out that I talked about Jio Ito for many, many years. Joy was the CEO of a company called Digital Garage. It's a venture capital firm out of Japan. I think this is very interesting. So from Jeffrey Epstein to Jio Ito, talking about the Digital Currency Initiative, this is MIT, saying, Gavin is clever. FYI, used gift funds to underwrite this, which allowed us to move quickly to win this round. And then from Joy, I think back to Jeff. As Bitcoin and digital currencies have started to become an important trend, the Media Lab has launched an initiative. I wrote a blog post on why I think blockchain, Bitcoin are like the internet. Interesting. The way that Bitcoin is organized currently, there are 5 core developers. Oh, this is that same conversation again, but highlighted. This take control and getting people to join the Media Lab. So again, the purpose, the reason for this was control. That Jeffrey was looking for money to go into Blockstream because Blockstream had pitched itself as the controllers of Bitcoin. They were saying, if you invest in us, you're investing in significant players in the BTC space. These are the people that actually influence the repo. Again, like we're talking about Peter Wello, we're talking about Gregory Maxwell, we're talking about Matt Corallo, and some of these other people are very significant players in the core ecosystem. And then the only other place where there were significant players in the core ecosystem was at MIT. And this was after the sort of shuttering of the Bitcoin Foundation. The Bitcoin Foundation fell apart very quickly all of a sudden. But I've also, just based on the way things went with Bitcoin Foundation, looked to me nefarious because everybody was involved early. People liked Bitcoin Foundation initially, and then all of a sudden there was a big narrative shift. And when that narrative shift happened, all of a sudden people scurried out and made their way to one of 2 places. At the time, it was MIT Digital Currency Initiative and Blockstream. And then when they were in both of those places, there's Jeff investing in both places. And so I find that very, very interesting to say the least. And so let's take another peek here. at to stage. There we go. So, as this is from Jio Ito to, let's see, Epstein Funds, Bitcoin core development at MIT Media Lab, Epstein and Jio Ito, who together invested in Blockstream, begin to fund Bitcoin core development at a time when the existing Bitcoin Foundation blew up. This is a big win for us. So that's also relevant, is that Digital Garage was also an investor in Blockstream. So for people that like to say that there were no direct connections between Jeffrey and Blockstream and that money didn't happen, you have to remember that Jeffrey was at the very least an LP in Digital Garage, and that money that coming from Digital Garage was also coming out of Jeffrey's pockets. And so he talks a bit about here that, this is fascinating, the way that Bitcoin is organized currently is that there are 5 core developers and around 100 contributors to the core code. The 5 core developers are like Linus Torvalds of Linux. They decide that changes are made to the core code, or what changes are made to the core code. One of the 5 is the lead developer, Vladimir, and one is the chief scientist, Gavin. Gavin, Vladimir, and Corey, an important contributing developer, were being paid out of a non-profit organization called Bitcoin Foundation. A few weeks ago, it blew up when one of the board members declared the foundation bankrupt. Many organizations scrambled to step into the vacuum created by the foundation and, quote, take control of the developers. Everybody's saying Kurt's crazy, Kurt's lying. There is no way to control. Nobody could even attempt to control. And so what this shows is that at the very least, the people that were funding the hijacking of Bitcoin were doing it purposely and with intent and with deep planning for the purpose of controlling Bitcoin. Okay? So when you look back at the early conversations, the Reddit threads on our Bitcoin, or if you look at the Bitcoin Talk forum and the debates that were happening in 2014, 15, 16, 17, all the stuff that led up to the split of Bitcoin Cash from Bitcoin Core, it was the big blockers saying, you guys, you have buddied up to predatory venture capital. And that venture capital is from the big payment space, the big bank space, and the big tech space. And what they want is to brick Bitcoin. They want Bitcoin to become unuseful for payments. They want Bitcoin to become unuseful for self-identification using public verification and public key cryptography. They wanted people to not be able to use any of the smart contract features or tokenization or creating escrow contracts, all these kind of things that make Bitcoin useful in commerce because they had a commercial interest in controlling those things for themselves. Blockstream is just one vehicle for those things. Blockstream wanted to launch things like the Lightning Network and Liquid Network. They wanted to be the federation of the control of money. They wanted to be one of the big signers that like to pipe money among the crypto exchanges doing whatever it is they do. And they did not want to be competing with a truly unbounded, unstoppable, unflappable Bitcoin protocol, which takes away the pillars of power. So they convinced everybody that the way to take away power was by making sure everyone could run their own node. And the victim of that, the thing that gets sacrificed on the altar of everyone running their own node, is scalability, cheap and reliable payments, tokens, smart contract capabilities, and all the other stuff that made Bitcoin actually disruptive. And because they were able to successfully convince most people that Bitcoin is supposed to just be a store of value, you're just supposed to sit there and do nothing. In fact, the more you do nothing, the more wealthy you will become. That's the bait and switch. And it's no coincidence that one of the other major investors in this group is the iFinex Corporation, which is the parent company of Bitfinex Exchange and Tether. And so if you look at how this all works, Tether has become what I like to call the Federal Reserve Bank. This is the Federal Reserve of the crypto economy. And what they do is they inflate the currency at will. They take other people's money. We know for a fact that it has at many times been almost completely uncollateralized. They pump the numbers out, then they pump the number up, they They wash it out on retail. They take the actual fiat currency of retail, they make their books all balance out, and then it all comes out in the wash, and now they're a big, profitable company again. And so it's not a bad scam, okay? Every single legitimate Bitcoiner expected social engineering attacks, and for the members of the cabal of big banks, big tech, and big government to put their money into things to make sure that Bitcoin remained undisruptive. And they did it very, very successfully. And so just write this on your heart. Take a note. Remember this, that the big blockers, the people who told you that this is what was going on, that's who was right. And that's who was right the entire time. And now, when the influencer types, your Peter Thiels and Reid Hoffmans, or your Michael Saylors, or whatever your Bitcoin treasury companies are, when they're telling you that, oh, Bitcoin was designed to be this incredible store of value, of course you have to have some. You have to keep buying retail. Make sure you go buy strategy stock or all these other things. Remember that it's those people that took away your sovereignty. They took away the ability for Bitcoin to make you powerful. And now they are asking you to invest in their companies as a little bit of respite. Here's your opportunity. And it reminds me of the old adage that what the government does is they will break your legs and they will give you a wheelchair for free as long as you vote for them. It's the exact same thing. They're giving you back third-party managed tools that they control, that they profit from, in exchange for your access to what they call the Bitcoin network. When in reality, you actually have the real Bitcoin, the thing that said no to all of these changes, resisted with their nodes every time this came up. That's BSV. That is the BSV blockchain. We're the only people that consistently said no to malicious or short-sighted or ridiculous changes to the underlying protocol. But Brock Pierce was the founder or co-founder of Tether, Bitfinex. He's an early investor in Blockstream, and also had close relationship. So his reputation already in tatters after his 2018 conviction for procuring minors for prostitution, spiraling further out of control as outlets and reporters, including the Huffington Post and Wired and others, uncover more and more juicy details about his salacious lifestyle. So he reaches out to Al Seckel, serial scammer and illusionist who's been dating Ghislaine Maxwell's sister Isabel for years. Epstein tasks Seckel with what he presumes to be a relatively cheap and easy job: wipe the internet of his sins. He wants to delete information, which would be a big problem in a Bitcoin-controlled world. So let's get into some of this stuff. Talking about, so Jeff to Al Seckel, dear Mr. Epstein, I think you should consider reimbursing the foundation for the cost of the so-called Mindshit conference. It was without a doubt the worst meeting we've ever funded. Murray, though, I thought under instruction, no PowerPoint rolled out. Is boring. Many time heard lecture. 3 people actually slept through it. Paul talked about aid to Africa. It was a terribly written email, by the way. And yeah, talking about some of their comings and goings here. But let's get back. Jeffrey, I figured I'd send you the fund I'm working on with Bill Elkis's firm. Would love your feedback. So some of these people from Brock Pierce. So here's Brock soliciting Jeffrey for more of some of the stuff that's going on. And I found this really interesting here. So if you look at the relationship between Seckel and Jeff, which is old, and then the connection to Brock Pierce. Brock Pierce, again, one of the main players in the Tether Bitfinex ecosystem, also a major player in the EOS ecosystem. So Brian Bishop, core developer, core contributor, not a huge one, but people know who Brian Bishop is. He and Jeffrey ended up having quite an interesting relationship between themselves too. And so this shows that their working relationship ended up becoming more than just Bitcoin stuff. And in here, he is talking with Brian about essentially building a designer human genome project and saying like, hey, we want to be able to essentially fertilize and grow children that are ideal genetically for one reason or another. And I think, first of all, that's terrifying, especially now knowing what Jeffrey was doing with children. And it's not just prostitution. Depending on how seriously you take some of these files, there's almost 1,000 mentions of pizza and pizza parties, which for all you Pizzagate people and all the people that were told that Pizzagate was totally fake, hey, here's all that conversation. People paying thousands or tens of thousands of dollars for pizzas and grape juice, which is obviously some kind of code. I'm not going to speculate on exactly what that code is, but you can fill in the blanks as you see fit. And so Brian Bishop working on potentially an investment, again, with Austin Hill, talking about making a designer baby project. So here's Brian pitching Jeffrey for funding, but they're having some back and forth. Fun talking today, lots of good ideas and ways to follow up. An idea stuck in Brian's head, meaning this was just one of the conversation points that Austin is pointing out. If you're serious, then we should set up some secure communication, because the email is not a problem, or is a problem now. I'll let Brian pitch you on a way to have total deniability. So here's Austin very specifically knowing that Jeffrey is a completely toxic person to be working with, but they want to do business with him anyways. Brian showing his deck about a designer baby project with this human trafficker of children. I have talked with Austin again, and we have a series of questions about how serious you are wanting this and what the ground rules are for me even exploring this with you and getting to next steps. Most of these questions are around your requirements for secrecy and privacy, specifically regarding reputational risk and also financial involvement. I think there would also need to be some understanding about goals and feasibility of different results. I think one way this could be done is under the banner of my Designer Babies project. So there's something else going on. The Designer Baby project is the palatable version of whatever they're talking about. Since the other deliverable is similar and shares many of the same procedures and lab requirements, this might offer a sufficient level of deniability. I propose another call Monday in the afternoon to discuss these issues. Please propose a time. Just think about how insane this conversation is already, right? Like, this is... If I were to have told you a year ago that Jeffrey Epstein was possibly involved in breeding designer children as a cover for some other more disgusting thing, you would have told me I was nuts. But here it is in print. Jeffrey bringing in Ben Lawsky, who was one of the key people involved in building the bit license, which was another... here's Jeff liked Lawsky. He must have been a nice guy. But also, I want to point out that the Gemini twins, the Winklevi, were also deeply involved in these discussions for BitLicense. They posted when these things passed as the people who pushed it through. So the Winklevi wanted to take basically all the credit for what happened with BitLicense, and so we haven't seen them in these conversations much. But here's from our old buddy Austin Hill, Jeff's best friend. I leave from Malta to Burning Man, but our chef is going to be in Paris. He's good people if you're gastronomically inclined. Time for a chat today. We're being asked to sign on the petition letter circulating to get Lawsky to extend the comment period on the new regs. Adam and I think we sit this one out, but would love your thoughts if you have a few minutes to chat. So still talking, me and Adam, sent from one of my many test mobile devices while on the go and changing the world. So apologies for my typos. Feel free to use my name with Bobby. Yes, maybe Malta, or you guys meet in Paris. So that's Adam Back and Austin Hill gallivanting around the world with Jeffrey Epstein, specifically influencing regulation in the Bitcoin space to make Bitcoin what they wanted it to be, which is a custodial asset that they control.
And Jeffrey Epstein also invested millions of dollars into cryptocurrency like Coinbase and Blockchain Capital as well.
And our friend Brian, Brian Armstrong, the most disappointing man in Bitcoin, in my opinion, claimed to be Bitcoin only. He's a big blocker. He's going to fight till the end. And now he runs the biggest shitcoin mill in the universe. Here we go. Mr. Epstein's traveling while he's away. Can you send me papers on the proposed transaction so I may review them before I present them to him? From Darren Indike. Darren, do you still work with Jeffrey? And if so, we're interested in buying the LLC below that we used to make this Coinbase investment. We did this investment at a $400 million valuation. The company just raised money at $1.6 billion. and we would be willing to buy the position from you at a $2 billion valuation. We would pay $15 million for this $3 million investment. Let us know if there's any interest. And yep, Darren, here's my information about the financing from Coinbase's lawyers. When we figure out which LLC will be making the $3 million investment, we will have them change the name of the investing entity. And so it's a little bit of cooking the books around to make sure that Jeffrey isn't implicated or that anybody else isn't implicated because of the relationship of proximity to Jeffrey, and invested into Coinbase, which I don't find it particularly shocking that Coinbase went from super based. They went from being a Bitcoin only and being big blockers, believing that Bitcoin could change the world because it's a world-changing technology, to just buy the tokens, get the money, we'll pump and dump you out of it, and then I've also posted, if you go read my, if you go back to my article here, I have the most disheartening tweet ever posted. Here we go. U.S. Army sponsored by Coinbase. So if you ever thought that Coinbase was maybe a disruptive entity and wanted to give you the opportunity to put a little pressure on the state, no, they're an official sponsor of the U.S. Army parade. To Jeffrey, I'm more interested in planting some seeds of thought. Ecuador is working on a nationally approved cryptocurrency. Looks like we have a pilot in the works with India to do a digital rupee to phase out graft and corruption. Canada is also looking at doing a digital CDN dollar. I'm more interested in what Treasury thinks about doing a Fed Reserve-backed digital USD, especially if they felt they could embed AML KYC policy into the coin. It's one of the few legitimate approaches they have to change the adoption use cases of Bitcoin. A digital USD wouldn't suffer the volatility of Bitcoin and could gain wider adoption and allow them to have a seat at the table, as opposed to regulating Bitcoin and driving innovation overseas and criminals underground. Any insight on this would be great. P.S. Still thinking about coming to Malta after Moscow? So look at what's admitted in this message. This message is literally approaching Jeffrey Epstein to talk about his connections to the Federal Reserve, what the Federal Reserve might want to do on a CBDC. This is in 2014. This is 12 years ago that the pillars of power are discussing how to have a KYC AML compliant CBDC issued by the Federal Reserve, and the contact for this is Jeffrey Epstein. They're not going to the Fed chairman. They're not going to some Fed module to discuss what's possible. They're going to Jeff because they know Jeff has that influence over the Federal Reserve to issue such a thing. And so that's also pretty bonkers right there. And there. Adam Back, start here.
Is Adam Back? He is the crypto king. Not only is he a BTC legend, but he is also one of the first ever cypherpunks. Let's read some emails. I want to start with a spam email because spam email's the best for sending secret messages. How do you leave a secret message in a spam email? With instructions. Remove the quotations. Just a spam email. It doesn't mean anything. Well, roof means racket, and the Taliban have been doing this. Spam emails so they're not searched by surveillance filters. But who's the contractor? Jim Daniels. JD Enterprises, we have this guy, James A. Donald, that has the email address consistently James D. Echek, so kind of similar. He owned Jim.com. That is now a payment network, which is run by CloudWalk, and CloudWalk is identified as a Chinese military company operating in the United States. Now, James Donald was done for that. Which one do you think he is? At the time of that date, Adam Back was emailing our James Donald. Keys are typically and commonly stored in the cloud. So the email, wrong one. So as I was saying, the email, no, this is the wrong one again. So the email also mentions pizza for dinner. Really weird way of saying it, but if you look at this list and you follow the instructions, you get a name. High schooler could do it, and there's a checksum. That name is Timothy May, and he told us what to look for. But Alex, you're just putting two random things together. It's all in your head. Don't worry about it. Watch this. That name, use the same instructions. Together with that name, get that. And if that's not enough, what about talking about airports when Olav Mueller was being... You think they put their legal representation in there? What does Adam think? He doesn't think it's a big deal. A white paper in a secret language, it pops out a name. Well, I'm the one that found it. This guy's read it and nearly gave the game away.
So Adam posted on the 1st, this is 2 days ago. It says in 2014, during Blockstream's seed round investor roadshow, the company was introduced to then MIT Media Lab director Jio Ito. Subsequently, Blockstream met with Jeffrey Epstein. So not me, he's saying Blockstream met with Jeffrey Epstein, who was described at the time as a limited partner in Ito's fund. That fund later invested a minority stake in Blockstream. A few months later, Ito's fund divested its Blockstream shares due to a potential conflict of interest and other concerns. Blockstream has no direct or indirect financial connection with Jeffrey Epstein or his estate. Very interesting, because there's a lot of Austin Hill saying, hey, me and Adam had a great time. Me and Adam would love to talk again. Me and Adam want to get coffee or something in Malta, which is where Adam lives, by the way. So let's take another look at this. You know, we saw this one in another spot, but my investment in your deal will be made through Jio Ito Investment Co. When do you expect papers? Now, remember what I said about Digital Garage? Digital Garage is Jio Ito's fund. Now, I thought Adam said, let's see, a few months later, Ito's fund divested its Blockstream shares due to a potential conflict of interest and other concerns. However, Digital Garage still remains here on Blockstream's website on February 3rd, 2026. So we've been saying since 2014 or 15, I first started saying that there is a problematic relationship with venture capital in Bitcoin. The fact that the companies that Bitcoin was designed to disrupt are the companies that were investing in the control of Bitcoin core developers was at the very least a curious conflict of interest. I was called a conspiracy theorist at first, and then when I resisted the change and then became a Bitcoin casher and then a Bitcoin SVer, I was called a scammer, that I just wanted to trick people into believing that some other fork was the real Bitcoin, when in reality what we were doing was resisting the insane takeover of Bitcoin, the hijacking of Bitcoin. And so I want to encourage you, go back and read my article. Read Hijacking Bitcoin by Steve Patterson and Roger Ver. I don't agree with their conclusions about Bitcoin Cash, but he actually does quite a good job explaining what happened.
Sorry to interrupt. So when Craig says that they don't want transparent money, they want drug money, pedo money, crime money, that's what he means.
At the very least. In fact, this was brought up with Craig, and Craig said, Epstein, he's like, all things considered, Epstein's not even that bad. So looking at who he's actually hunting, Epstein, don't get me wrong, real bad guy. Yeah. But he's not the head of the dragon either. He's certainly not the worst. There are people doing much nastier stuff in the world than Jeffrey was. But
the hole just goes so deep.
It sure does. And people are almost completely unaware of it. I mean, why was this not big news, right? Jeffrey Epstein was probably the single largest human trafficker ever taken down in public. I mean, there was the Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself was all over the internet for months. It was huge. Why wasn't it discussed?
Good. Bitfinex USDT, the fact that everyone knows it's a scam and they're allowed to operate, it just makes so much sense now.
Sure does. Well, it's the internet. This is just trolling. But I mean, you and I, there were people trolling you for saying that I was going to be on your show today. All of a sudden you get these cartoons on Twitter saying, oh, haha, this is going to be stupid. What an idiot. And it's like, okay, well, who are you? What is this account? Why is there always, when you start to mention where their money comes from, all of a sudden there's these anonymous cartoons on Twitter and everybody else that starts saying, yeah, they start to pick you apart. They start, calling me a scammer and all these things. I'm not selling anything. I'm a historian. So I point these things out, and this is what's called in technology, this is called a Sybil attack. What a Sybil attack is when people are pretending to be one thing, but they're actually all working for a malicious actor. And that malicious actor, in my opinion, I think it's very clear. Like, I don't think that it's even really debatable that MasterCard and the central banking interests are pulling the puppet strings of basically the entire crypto space. And like you said, we're acting like we're anti-bank, we're this revolutionary group, and no, meet the new boss, same as the old boss, unfortunately.